Hello everybody, welcome to WhatCulture Gaming. I'm Scott, joined by Josh.
Hello, Scott. Josh,
my friend, it seems like we have an update on the whole backwards compatibility shenanigans regarding the PS5, and it comes from Ubisoft themselves. So, on one of Ubisoft's own official support pages, in a statement that has since been deleted, which is always the smoking gun, they were discussing the idea of various Ubisoft games being playable on PS5, and they said there will be support for certain PlayStation 4 titles coming from them and Sony, but it will not be possible for PlayStation 3, PlayStation 2, or PlayStation games. That has since been deleted, but I wanted to get your initial thoughts on this because I think a lot of people, including me, were just waiting for Sony to put out something more official in regards to what the living hell's happening with backwards compatibility, being that there was a patent filed in February last year which pointed to the idea of every disc-based PlayStation game, which is all of them, minus the Vita, I guess, being playable on the PS5. And the fact that they're not going to do that is a bit sad.
It is, isn't it? I mean, never mind just put something out about backwards compatibility, Scott Tilford. Just put something out.
Just put something out.
Just put something out. Just put something out. Just tell me some information about the PlayStation 5 because we have heard specifically about backwards compatibility, like you said, for years now. We've been doing these news videos for years about every little update.
We've aged so much.
We really have, about whether or not it's going to have, just backwards compatibility with a PS4 or like a legacy backwards compatibility between PlayStation 3, PlayStation 2, PlayStation 1. And obviously that is the ideal thing. We've been through before about how they could do that. Is it going to be disc-based? Is it going to be PlayStation Now-based? How is it going to happen? And I feel like, a couple of months away from launch, touch wood, we should have a bit more information because even when it comes to the PlayStation 4 stuff, which they have confirmed that most titles will be available as a backwards compatibility option.
Even that's weird.
Even that's weird. Even that, we still don't have an exact number. We don't have an exact lineup of titles. Like when Microsoft announced backwards compatibility for the Xbox One, they had a bunch of, marquee games where they were like, this is coming back, You'll be able to play these games straight away. Sony just hasn't got that yet, and it seems like the messaging is mixed to the point where Ubisoft is putting out statements and then having to retract them because it just seems like nobody knows.
But it's just like someone from Sony must have just seen that and gone, no, you're not supposed to know that yet. Even the idea of declining something that we don't even know if we're doing it or not, or how we're going to do it. We need to get out there and tell Ubisoft to retract that. There is another date worth mentioning that back in July of this year, that was when a different patent came out about the idea of cloud-based emulation. That they had this whole design doc thing drawn up, and it was the examples that were given showed like the original PlayStation, PS2, PS3 being emulated inside the PS5, and that was another way that they could potentially do it. Now that points more towards the idea of something like a PlayStation Now, something that you log into. Unless you could put a disc in, it would verify it and then let you play the streamable version of the game that you put in, something like that. I don't know. Like if you want to do Ray of Hope stuff like glasses half full, then maybe there is still a way that they can do disc-based backwards compatibility. And Ubisoft were talking entirely about, I don't know, support for their version of the game or something, in regards to certain titles that they maybe want to hold back on and sell you an HD upgrade again like they did this generation. Maybe. I don't know. I don't want to believe that they're not doing anything when Xbox are leading the fray with this, and it just seems like such an open goal to be like, this is the everything machine. But maybe that's the kind of thing you hold back on for a bit longer until you just do the PlayStation Suicide Squad style, and that just lets you play everything.
I mean, like, dude, you're totally right. Like, that would be such it's like you said, an easy, well, not easy, but certainly an open goal, certainly a huge win. But I wonder, when it comes to this specifically, because we have been so in the weeds about it, like looking through patterns, looking through rumors, looking through leaks, looking at what Mark Cerny and people at Sony have officially said, I wonder whether we've just kind of projected what we want this machine to be, and now we're going to get disappointed because of the thing that we built up in our heads, because they have been quiet about it. But then again, when you are quiet about something like this, it leaves space for people like us and other fans to like pick over every bit of information like we've been doing, to get our hopes up from leaks, to get our hopes up from patents. And I don't think that's entirely unfair either, because the messaging has been so kind of like cards close to the chest about it all, and it would be such a great thing for the PlayStation 5 to embrace its legacy, like we've been saying for ages and ages, especially when, like you said, the competition has been doing it and absolutely smashing it out of the park by having this all-in-one machine that pays homage to its back catalogue and lets you play anything like you love. Well, not anything, but you know what I mean. Especially when it comes to the Xbox Series X at launch. We all know it might not be enough to sell us on the system, but we know there are going to be hundreds of games that we can play that will be up-res, that will be perform better. HDR, stuff like that. It's not for me a system seller, but it's certainly a feature that is welcome and what I would want other publishers to seek out.
I do wonder how much on Sony's side, because right now, we've sort of mentioned, for the love of God, just put something out in regards to the release date or the price, and they've publicly stated, both Microsoft and Sony have both said, look, we're waiting for the competition, and it's just game of chicken, and we're just sitting in the middle as the consumer. I wonder if the conversation around backwards compatibility and just how much money there is in that compared to how much of the R&D budget would have to be. It's such an upfront cost into making the console do this, and then how do they then benefit from that as a publisher, other than it just being a really good move towards the consumer? That's very much Microsoft's in at the minute. It's like, oh, don't worry about it. Just love it, one and all. Everything's fine. You can play whatever you want, and you can play it anywhere. You can stream it to your phone, whatever, and you can play old games. It's all fine. I wonder how much Sony are just being cold hard cash and just waiting for the competition to sort of at launch. How much do people respond to this? Is it seen as like a laughing stock because they don't have new titles to put alongside it? Is it actually worth the money investing in this? Because the last time they did do a cloud-based quote-unquote a cloud-based emulation thing, PS Now, and did the PlayStation TV accessory and whatever, that stuff didn't pan out at all, and those things got cancelled and discontinued, and now we have PS Now on the system, but it's not anywhere near as front-loaded as something like Game Pass. So, totally. I don't know, there's almost like a business reality to it, where I'm like I would love to play Soul Reaver on my PS5, but I wonder how much, where in that process did they benefit, other than just it being a really good optics move.
Well, that's it, man. You're totally right. I think apart from optics, that's the only reason that they would do it, because ultimately, I think Sony especially, they've increasingly proven, even over the past few months, that they're incredibly old school when it comes to, putting out consoles, defining what a generation is, defining what a machine is. For better or worse, Microsoft has made a lot of great strides and gained a lot of good press by being quite consumer friendly in an era where Sony is kind of, putting up the walls more and more. But ultimately, that is, sorry if anyone can hear this, someone's just jumped on a jackhammer and started going crazy outside. But Sony ultimately is kind of, it's very old school, and it's benefiting from that old schoolness, you know what I mean? It makes Spider-Man exclusive for the Avengers, and then it increases the pre-orders for the Avengers on PlayStation 4, you know what I mean? These things have results ultimately, and I think it is willing to kind of take that optics kind of blow on the head and just push forward, because at the end of the day, they're a business and ultimately in it for the money. I don't necessarily love that approach to it, but it is undeniably it's working for them, and they can come out and say, we've got PlayStation Now, you can play old games on that. We've got PlayStation 4 games that are backwards compatibility. What more do you want from us? You know what I mean? We've got those boxes ticked. We don't need to go the extra mile, because ultimately it's not going to make them as much money as not doing that and just allowing people to sell remasters or kind of putting out souped up versions of their own games on the store after the fact or something.
Which is also something that all the big tier publishers would back as well, because that's obviously what Activision are doing, where it's, Tony Hawk's out in a few days, and they've made an absolute killing on Crash and Spyro, and it's just why not mind your old school library rather than giving people the ability to play those original games and deny the purchase of the new thing. So there's potentially a really cold hard business reality to backwards compatibility not being quote unquote worth it. But I played SSX3 the other day. Still couldn't say it. SSX3 the other day, and it was lovely. I'd recommend that. The original Black Ops. The servers are still online. It's very, very good. But I don't know. I'm curious to see how it shakes out. I think this is one of the biggest conversation, or one of the biggest talking points going into the next generation. And Microsoft and Sony could not be further apart on it, especially if this Ubisoft stuff is true. Let us know what you think down in the comments below of the state of backwards compatibility. Is it something that would sell a console for you, or do you really, honestly, not care that much? For now, I've been Scott from WhatCulture.com.
I've been Josh from WhatCulture.com.
And we'll catch you next time. Bye.
Bye.